Hello and welcome to Inside View. I'm your host, Joel Metzger, and joining me on this show is Steve Kearney. He is a candidate for District 5 Supervisor, and he's in a runoff in the general election this fall with Marty Crane. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Joel.
First of all, congratulations on what could be considered to be a pretty impressive victory, getting to this runoff in the primary.
Thank you.
I know that was a hard-fought campaign. You had 3 opponents, and the incumbent, Darren Smellman, didn't make the runoff. You and Marty did, and then Roy Estockery also didn't make the runoff. So very interesting how those results panned out. Was it what you expected with the District 5 race?
It really was what I expected. I felt that with the mix of candidates that we had, the results were fairly predictable.
Okay. As you moved through that campaign, did you feel like there were some significant ebbs and flows in momentum, or did you feel as though it was pretty consistent all the way?
I think that there were some I call them mountains and valleys, as opposed to ebbs and flows. A lot of it is your own learning process that you go through. I'm my own manager, so if there was a mistake that was made, it was my mistake. So you pick up and you go from there. And there was, once I got into the first debate, or maybe even the interview that we did in this room, that was a real learning experience, because I had to pay very close attention to everything that I was saying, because it all had meaning, and learned a lot from that. And by the next live debate, I learned even more. And probably by the third debate or forum, that was probably the top of the mountain, and I sort of dialed in the message that I wanted to say, at least on a live basis, or directly coming from me, where you have to deliver it to the people.
What do you think are some of the most important things you've learned so far on this journey?
To listen to the people that are talking to you. A number of the things that have evolved in my campaign, and even the way I feel about some of the issues, have come directly from the voters, not only in my own district, but in the county of Calaveras, and even some of the listening that I've done from people outside the county. That is the most important thing that I've done, that I've learned, and also to give feedback, and to give them an honest feedback. Don't blow smoke at anybody, because that's going to come back and haunt you, and I haven't forgot that lesson.
What do you think has been the most challenging thing that you've faced over the past few months?
Dealing with government regulations. I can see why people hire political campaign operatives to take care of them, because you've really got to stay on top of your game when nobody's telling you every inch of the way what to do, and to make sure you file this on time, or you've logged this donation in, and the other important thing that I just had to really learn was the cost of a campaign is just, to me, it's obscene, and I wish that there was some kind of campaign reform that could put an end to what we're spending on these things. But let's face it, it is what it is, and now that I've seen the inside of it, after a couple gasps for air, I just had to go, okay, this is what I've got to deal with. I'm not real good at asking people to give me money to do something like this.
It's not an easy thing to do.
It is not easy.
And yet, because in this current system you need money in order to run a campaign that's effective usually. I mean, you've seen some outliers where someone doesn't even do a thing and then they still win. But for the most part, it takes a good bit of money. I was going to ask you what the most unexpected thing was, but I wonder if that was it, just how expensive this is, or?
No, I really think it was keeping on top of the regulations.
It was that was the most unexpected.
It's not easy to find advice and help, even though they want you to think it is. I mean, you end up calling the FPPC and you're on hold for 30 minutes, and pardon me, you know, by the time you've listened to the music on hold for 30 minutes, you have to remember what your question was when you even get to me. Go, oh my gosh, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, that really was the most unexpected thing, because I have known people, good friends that have run for office, and they said, "Oh, you're going to find a lot of help. It'll be really easy." And so I have to go back and correct them.
Sure, sure. Well, one of the things that I hope to do with this show is to just, if anyone hasn't been introduced to you, especially those in District 5 who are tuning in, but people need to understand it's not just District 5 that matters. If you win this, if you become a county supervisor, you're one of 5 voices who really kind of shape the future of this county. And I think that's really important for people to remember, is that you're not just voting for someone who's going to affect your backyard. You know, this is the county as a whole. But I really think it's important that we have educated voters out there. So if you don't mind, could we just go back to the beginning where you were born and grew up, and we'll just kind of walk through your life summary, and then we'll get into some more up-to-date things about this particular campaign and the issues. But were you born in Lodi, is that right?
I was born in Lodi.
Okay.
In fact, I'm very fortunate that my mother's still with me, and she lives in the house that I literally grew up in, and have great times going down and spending moments with her. I grew up in Lodi my entire life. Went to the schools there. My grandparents lived near Clements, so spent a lot of time in the country out there and always enjoyed it. Fishing on the McCollum, picking blackberries, doing those sorts of things that country kids do. And when I graduated from Lodi High School, I attended San Joaquin Delta College, and I graduated from there. Went back and worked a little while to save my nickels and dimes and put myself through the University of California at Davis. And I graduated with my bachelor's from there. When I was going to the University of California at Davis, I had an internship with a California State Assemblyman who was from Plymouth. His name was Norman Waters. I really didn't even have a grasp on political parties at that time or anything of that nature, so I didn't even care about that. What I cared about was that he was the chairman of the Water Parks and Wildlife Committee, and I have always had an interest in the outdoors. So I did my internship with him, and after the internship, I must have done something right, because they offered me a job, which at the time when I was a broke college student was $400 a month, and I thought I died and had gone to financial heaven. And so I did that, but when I graduated from school, the reality kicks in like it does on every new college student, and I went out and found a job, which was with a company that I'd done some part-time work with before. It was Long's Drug Store, and they gave me an opportunity to move to Tuolumne County in the foothills, and after that I knew I wasn't going to go back to grad school or do anything. I was in love with the foothills, and I knew that I would try to work my career out there, and eventually ended up working in Valley Springs, opening that, what is now CVS, opening that as a Long's Drug Store, and working there for the last 13 plus years of my career. And when I came to Calaveras County, I initially lived in Mountain Ranch. In the summer of 2001, my son and I, my youngest son and I, moved down to Valley Springs in Rancho Calaveras, and I still live in that house today.
What was your position at Long's Drugs?
Well, my final position was a store manager at the Valley Springs location. Fortunately, the Long's Drugs company trained you to be an entrepreneur. It's a little different than chain retail nowadays. They train you to be an entrepreneur, and you learn to run the business from the ground floor, everything from hiring people to buying the merchandise and setting it up, writing your own financial plans. And I did that for a long time, but I also was able to have a number of corporate duties too at the same time. I managed sporting goods ad accounts for as many as 50 stores. We did purchasing for the entire chain for at times too, and also managed different product ad accounts for the chain at the corporate level, and as well as so many other duties I can't even remember them over a 30-year career.
What led you to retire?
It's really an interesting story, and I tell people, if you were with Long's Drugs a long time, CVS, the takeover was really an internal change that probably took about 3 years. And for a Long's Drugs person like myself, it was fairly painful to see what was happening, and was actually getting very tough to work there. It wasn't the kind of like the John Wayne story, the unit I signed on with. So I had my youngest still live with me. He was a great kid. He was going to Sac State. And he came home one day and said, Dad, I said, guess what? And I said, what? I said, I've got a full ride scholarship to college. And I just said, that's really good news. So after a couple of very tough days, I came home and said, it's really time to clean out my benefits that I've got with them and move on. And it was a good parting. I mean, I wasn't a CVS employee, and literally my tenure with them ended the day before CVS publicly announced.
Wow.
Quite by accident.
Okay. What are some other things that you've done in the community during your time here, along with working at Long Drugs?
I've really kind of had a love affair with the community since coming here, and fortunately Long supported that, even though our work schedules sometimes were very challenging. They did encourage their managers to get involved in the community, and just right off the bat, I've been involved in so much, Joel, I can't remember it all. One of the key things was being the president of the Valley Springs Boosters, which put the fireworks event, which is going to actually happen in about a week or so.
All right.
The last Saturday in June over New Hogan. I presided over that for roughly 13 years. The first couple years I was sort of in training as a fireworks person in training, I guess. But we built that club to where it sustains itself today. And I've done everything from coach Saturday afternoon basketball to the Calaveras High School Music Boosters to being an interim board member of the Calaveras County Chamber, president of the West Chamber of Commerce. I don't know that I can even remember everything. It's just been an enjoyable time, and the community has thanked me for it. They awarded me the title of Citizen of the Year, as well as Volunteer of the Year, and I couldn't appreciate it anymore. Those things are very important to me, and to this day, sometimes people ask me what your hobbies are. One of my hobbies are just enjoying the people in the community.
Did you serve on the Planning Commission for a while?
I served as a planning commissioner from 2006 to 2010. When I was on the commission, it was a very busy time, actually. And you couple that with a pretty challenging work schedule, it did keep me on my toes, but sure. It was a tremendous learning experience. It was a time of a revolving door with the planning directors. You really had to figure out what you were doing almost literally on your own, and I enjoyed it.
So you've been so involved in the community and had a long career here, and then finally got to the point where maybe in retirement you could start to pursue some more of your hobbies. Now, like you like the outdoors, you like to fish and things like that, and like you said, be with people and enjoy the community. But a supervisor role is no small task. So when you were kind of thinking about, am I going to run or am I not going to run? What pushed you over the edge? Because this is no small decision.
Well, it isn't, and I completely agree. And if the campaign process is a taste of it. You're already having people come to me and asking me questions as if I was in the position and what would I do about it. So It is just standard for me to work hard. I've been doing it all my life. It's part of who I am. And I can see that the county needs somebody who wants to do that right now. The challenges before not just District 5, but Calaveras County are immense. Why would I want to do this? Because I believe that the experiences that I've had can be well used to help the county progress. I've worked with financial plans. We're obviously struggling financially. I've worked with personnel. We have had a lot of personnel changes in certain departments, and I have thoughts on that. I've opened up new markets for the company that I was with, and right now we need to find ways to promote business here. Excuse me. And I believe that myself in the position will bring a good lot of experience to that.
You said you had thoughts on the revolving door of personnel. That's something that I've pondered myself as I see so many high-level positions. Someone comes in, they seem great, good hire, and then within a year or two, it seems like they're gone. And this has been, the planning director is one that you mentioned, but we've also had, quite a few CAOs. We've had some department heads leave. Brian Moss has had to take over more. We've had a lot of people just not last very long here. I'm just curious what those thoughts are and whether you think something could be done about it.
I do. There's questions that I would ask that I don't know if are being asked. I probably hired over 1,000 people in my life for jobs, and not all professional level jobs. I mean, a lot of them were young people working after school to make a couple bucks, and had a lot of different experiences in the interview process. I can tell you my personal belief for a fact is when you hire someone for a professional level position and you want to keep them, you have to ask them some questions that indicate whether they want to be involved with the community going forward. If you're hiring somebody for a position and they don't ever want to move here, they want a car to commute 2 counties away, they have no intention of staying when the going gets thick. But if you hire somebody and they say, man, I can't wait to get here, I love to snow ski, and I can't wait to bass fish on Hogan, my children are really excited about the athletic programs here. You start hearing those sorts of things, okay, you can almost take somebody with less experience in the job who wants to stay for a long time if they want to be part of the community. And obviously, if they don't want to be part of the community and they're here as basically, I call them like a contractor type attitude, when the going gets tough, they're going to say, it's time to go look somewhere else. But on the other hand, if they just bought their dream home in La Cantena or Forest Meadows or San Andreas, wherever they went, then that's not going to be what they say. And if their kids are involved in programs or, pardon me, or if they are very involved with the church locally, then they're part of the community and they're going to stay. And in the interview process, they'll let you know about that if you're paying attention to them. That's the key thing. There are other things too that I would bring up, and I don't know how long you want me to talk about that.
Yeah, well, I think that's definitely some good tactical questions there. I did want to ask you about budget. I know that the board just passed a prelim budget, and they agreed to cut $2.2 million out of an $8 million deficit that they were facing, which is monumental. I mean, that's a huge chunk of change. It's tough financial times over there right now, and you are basically saying, I want to sign up to inherit this difficult financial situation. What are your thoughts on what's going on with the budget, and what kind of impact or solutions might you bring?
Well, you're right. They did just pass a preliminary budget, which will be revisited in the early fall, late summer, early fall, and they'll have to deal with that then. There are certain things that we have to answer the questions to them, and hard decisions will have to be made. I mean, such as funding a wildlife person to go out, and I listened to that argument and back and forth with it, and heard that discussion, and I thought, why are we putting $40,000 out for this? And because we did it before. And so how do we stop doing that? Well, I don't know. I know a lot of ranchers throughout my years, and oddly enough, they're very few of them were into sport hunting, but they all had rifles in their back of their pickups, and it's because if they had to deal with something, they took care of it, I suppose. But suddenly we have a feeling that because we've paid for this, we have to keep doing it. We have to stop doing that kind of thing. We have to step out and just say, no, we can't afford it. And the other thing too, with the budget process, if I was involved with it right now, I would be screaming to start a strategic plan going forward, okay? So I'm trying to fit a lot here in this short statement that I've got. I know that the budget process is tough, and we've seen hints from a lot of the players that said, well, okay, if we do this year, next year we'll do a little bit of this, next year we'll do a little bit of that. Okay, we need a plan that says going forward, how are we going to get out with this? I didn't create this wheel. Other counties are doing this. CCWD just had a big presentation on their strategic plan going forward, and we've got to say, okay, people, we can't spend money that we don't have, and but I all want you to bear with me, because here's the plan. Okay, tough it out this year, then next year, we're going to do this. And by maybe 4 years, we're actually on target again. And it's no different than what we do in our own lives. When you're young and you want to buy a house, unless you're one of these rare few that have large inheritance or family gives you one, you set a plan for yourself and say, okay, I want to buy a house in 4 years. So we're going to put this much money away every month, and next year we're going to put that much money away, then next year that much, and next year that much. And all of a sudden, you've planned how to make your finances work for you. And that's something the county, I really seriously believe, has to start and initiate a strategic plan on how we're going to dig out of this. No candidate, if they promise that they're going to solve all the issues in a year, I would have a very hard time. It's going to take a while. We're in a fix. I've managed businesses through 4 recessions, and I know what it takes when it gets going very tough, especially in a large corporation. You can be doing well, and my stores always were, but because other stores weren't, they would be taking from me to make the larger family work, and that's what's happening now in the county also.
One thing I think that voters are interested in are specifics, and I like the idea of a strategic plan, but I didn't hear anything in terms of what might be in that strategic plan. And I know as a candidate looking to be that elected position, maybe you would have some ideas, and if we look at the past, each department has undergone cuts of 12.5, 17.5% year after year after year. Positions, when someone retires, they haven't been filled. Staff is the vast majority of the general fund budget paying for people. And I'm not seeing any solutions to this. Can you bring any specifics that you might put on the table? Okay,
well, if you planned, and you brought up staff, so I'll take that one on right up front. I think we need to stop scaring our employees that they're all going to get laid off all the time, and let them know, no. If we tell them, so, okay, during the next 4 years, we have to reduce the staff. You're going to have attrition. You're going to have people that leave through for different reasons, their own volition. Maybe that the job wasn't for them anymore. Maybe they won the lottery. I don't know. But when they leave, how do you change their positions? And you're already starting to see the CAO do this, where she's taking departments and sort of rearranging them, and that's got to be done. If you're going to run the county with fewer employees, and you don't want to be the Grim Reaper and go around and lay everybody off, and that's hard on morale when they're afraid of that. But then you take your 4-year plan, and they've already spent some one-time funds again this year in this budget. Okay, so to stop doing that, you say, all right, well, this year through attrition we lost 5%, and in the next 4 years you can just figure you're going to lose 5% every year. Well, all of a sudden you've reduced your staff by 100 people. Okay, but you've got to go into that staff and say, okay, what is your job? Well, maybe in the summer this job is outdoors, but to continue your employment with the county, you've got to come in and do something different. Does that job work for you? And you're able to do that. Okay, and you've got to ask yourself how to rearrange that labor force to keep them going and make them more flexible. You're already seeing some of that, so once again, I'm not inventing this wheel, but I'll encourage that wheel to continue to be implemented.
I don't want to cut your budget off, but in the minutes we have left, I wanted to give viewers an idea of some goals you might have to implement if you end up getting elected during your time as supervisor.
Some goals that I would have?
For yourself and for your district.
Well, for the district, I'm hoping that the general plan comes forward and it comes forward post haste. We did see a proposal, actually a request for additional funding to devote a contractor by the planning director to that, and I am keeping my fingers crossed because his statement was that it would be out towards the end of the summer, that it does come out. We have investors that won't come here because we don't have a general plan, and we've seen that, and it is very much taking away from our economic vitality. And the strategic plan going forward, I will really push for that so that we can tell people, yes, we are tightening our belts, but the way we're going to get out of this is how we're going to do it. And everybody buys into it. How much more time do I have?
I think we're just about there.
Okay.
I wanted to thank you for coming on, though, Steve. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining me on this edition of Inside View. I'm your host, Joel Metzger, and I hope you join me next time.